Hi guys, welcome back to the Mobile Space video tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be working on milestone 3 of our Movie Guide iOS app. So we're going to be implementing local persistence of movies using the Realm database. So far, we have a working Movie Guide app, but every time we run the app, we're making an API call. So what we want to do is we want to make the API call, save the movies to our database, and the next time we want to load those movies from our database. So let's jump right in. This is where we left off. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the pod for Realm. Just like last video, I have a few lines of helper code here, just to make the video a little bit shorter. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the pod file and put the pod in there. Once I have that, I can do pod install. All right, that's great. So all of these were the pod files. So now I'm going to open up the Xcode workspace file again. Great. So for this one, the only two files that we will be changing is the first one is the movie.swift file. So this is our model. And we're going to switch from NSObject to a Realm object. So the Realm object is defined, so it's going to be the subclass of the Realm object, which is just object, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is import Realm Swift and Realm so we can start using it. So I'm going to do this right on top here. I'm going to let it finish processing those files. Okay, and now I'm going to Command-Shift-K to clean it and then Command-B to build it to make sure that it's able to process both of those pod files. I look in the pods, I see Realm as well as Realm Swift. Great. So let's wait for it. This can take a while. Okay, great. So that's looking good. So I'm going to change this NSObject because if I command click it, you see it's NSObject, which is iOS, but I'm going to change that into just an object, which is going to be a Realm object. So now if I command click it, you see it takes me to the Realm pod right here, Realm Swift. So that's good. So I'm going to do this, and then the syntax for this is using a dynamic for it. All of this can be found on the Realm documentation. So if you look at it, so if I just do Realm Swift, there's a couple things which are useful to get as well if you're going to be using Realm for your local database. And I believe they talk about it here. So this is about how to get using CocoaPods, and then if you're using Xcode 8, you would need to use this. So Realm Browser is the first one. This is sort of lets you peek into your database. So you can get that. And the second one is this Xcode plugin, which lets you create Realm objects as a Swift file. So in this case, because I already have an object, I'm pretty much just going to change the subclass. But if you wanted to create an entirely new Realm object, you could basically use this. And then getting started, and then models right here shows you how to create a model as well. So since I have this, and Realm doesn't have an NSURL, so I'm going to change this to a string. And then just make it equal to null. Yeah, we don't need this null part, but I'm going to put it in. And then that is going to be a string as well. Okay, so that's looking good. And then the init function, I'm actually going to change this to be a class function as well. So if I change that to be a class function, it's going to take new movie. I'm going to give it a function name called new movie, and then it's going to return a movie at the end of it. And then I'm going to be changing a little bit of this code as well. So I'm going to say let movie equals movie. And then over here, I'm going to say movie.poster, movie.poster, movie, 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 as well as movie. Okay. And it's complaining here because it's of type string up here. So I'm going to get rid of the NSURL and handle that in the other file. So right here, get rid of that. So let's get rid of that. Okay, so this class function is basically going to take a dictionary and then return a movie object. All right, and then this one is pretty much going to be the same thing, but this time instead of appending directly into our variable movies, I'm going to first write it onto our realm database and then append it to a movie. So if we look at this right here, this is what we're going to use in place of this. So let's get rid of that. And so what this is doing is it's pretty much writing the realm, right? So so let's look at this dictionary with value. Oops, my bad. So this needs to actually be changed to new movie with the dictionary. All right, let's get rid of that. And so what this is doing is, so this is the syntax to write to the realm database. You pretty much have this realm object, which we're going to use in, let's just do it right now. So we're going to create a variable up here so it can be used across multiple files called realm object, and then we're going to import, we're going to say try realm. So that's going to be our object that we're going to use to access our database. And then I need to import both of these up here as well. So now our realm object is defined. If I go back to movie, we're saying try realm object. So we're going to see if you can write to it, and then we're doing realm object dot add movie. So we're going to, for every movie, we're going to add it to our database, and then at the end of it, we're pretty much doing the same thing that we did earlier. We're saying movies dot append to the variable movies, and then we're returning movies. Okay, so this is pretty much all we needed to change here in our model. And then if you go to our view controller, we added a couple things. So we added the import realm swift and realm. We also created the realm object variable. And finally, we're going to add this as well. So this is going to let us read. So instead of the make API call, we're going to add a check where we say, hey, first I want you to look into the realm database, see if the movies exist. If they do, I don't want you to make the API call. But if they don't exist, then I want you to make the API call, right? So with this code that I just pasted here, that's pretty much what we're doing. So this one's, the print statement is basically to help us get the location of our realm database on our computer so we can look at it. DB movies, so realm object.object movies.self. So this is going to grab all the movies from our realm database. So now if movies exist, we know that DB movies has movies in it, right? So the next thing we're doing is we're saying, hey, if dbmovies.count is greater than 0, that means if one or more movies exist in our database, that means we found movies. So in that case, we're pretty much grabbing movies out of the DB movies and then adding it to our movies array, which is an array of movie objects, right? Else, if no movies were found, we're going to make the API call. Okay, cool. So that is looking good. So this should pretty much work. That wasn't a lot of code, but this should make the API call and save movies in a array. So you remember the NSURL thing that I changed back there? So because this is set image with URL is expecting an NSURL type, but movie path now is a string, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert that to NSURL. So I'm going to say NSURL for movie path. I think it's string movie path. There we go. NSURL string movie path, and then force unwrap it. All right. And then I'm going to also need to change this NSURL for string movie. Nope. All right, never mind. I'm going to force unwrap it. All right, go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's give this a run and see if we're able to use Realm. Okay, so it looks the same, right? But if you look at our code here, it says found movies in database. So let me run that again. So let me close this app and delete it. So if I delete it, and let me give that a run again. Okay, so we see all our movies, but then if we look at our console log right here, we see that the first thing it does is it says connection to API successful, and then it prints a bunch of statements where it says new movie saved with the name, right? So this is exactly what's happening in this code right here. Because this was the first time it ran, it wasn't able to find any, because we deleted the app, right? So it wasn't able to find any movies in our database. So it made the API call. When it makes the API call, it went to our sort of print statement, and then it printed out all our movies. So right here, it wrote the movies to our database, and it said new movie saved with name right. So now all our movies are in our database. So the next time I run it, we shouldn't see the connection to API successful message, but this time we should see our the other message, which is found movies in database. So let's stop and run it again and see what happens. Okay, so we still see the movies, but this time we see found movies in database, right? So this time it didn't make the API call. So even if I turn my Wi-Fi off, it wouldn't matter. The app would still work the same way because this time it's pulling movies from my local database. There we go. So it says found movies in database. Great. Um, so yeah, so this video is pretty short. It's really, really easy to use Realm, especially if you're just getting started for a small project. So I think that's going to be a wrap for this video. This also wraps up our second project for mobile space, which was to create a movie guide app. Just to sort of recap what we did for this project, let's go over the milestones quickly. So the first thing we did was we set up the movies table view along with the custom table view cell and the detail view controller. We then were able to make the API call and get the movies from our API endpoint. And the last thing we did was to implement local persistence. So now we don't have to make the API call every single time, but it's just the first time, and then from there on out, we're able to grab the movies from our database and show it to the user. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed building this app. Thanks for following along. See you.